The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that could make a heart tremble. The moon hung low, its pale light spilling gently across the riverbank where Lee and Tusam sat side by side. The cool wind brushed against their faces, carrying the scent of wet grass and the sound of distant waves. Everything seemed so still, except for the beating of their hearts. Lee was leaving at dawn. His mission was dangerous, and no one knew if he would come back alive. Tusam tried to be strong, but her trembling fingers betrayed her fear. She looked at him, her eyes shining with both love and sorrow. "Lee," she whispered, "when you go, will you still think of me?" Lee turned to her, his gaze calm but deep, as if trying to memorize every line of her face. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly, almost as though he was afraid to let go. "Tusam," he said softly, "when I return, I will marry you. That's a promise." For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The words fell into her heart like drops of rain onto dry soil. She wanted to believe them. No, she needed to believe them. Her lips curved into a trembling smile. "You promise?" "I promise," Lee said again, his voice low, firm, and filled with warmth. "When I come back, we'll build our home near this river. You'll plant your flowers, and I'll fix the old wooden bridge. We'll live quietly, just the two of us." Tusam rested her head on his shoulder. The stars shimmered above, as if listening to their vow, yet deep inside, a tiny shadow of doubt whispered, "What if he never comes back?" She didn't dare say it aloud. Instead, she closed her eyes, letting the rhythm of his heartbeat become her only truth. In that fragile moment, love was everything, more real than fear, more lasting than time. When dawn came, the sun rose with a golden fire. Lee stood at the gate, his uniform crisp, his eyes filled with determination. Tusam held back her tears, forcing a smile. "Come back to me," she said softly. "I will," he replied, turning to look at her one last time. "Wait for me." And then he was gone, swallowed by the dust of the road and the promise that now lived only in her heart. Tusam stood there long after his shadow disappeared. The river still flowed, the birds still sang, but for her, time had stopped. She pressed her hand against her chest, whispering into the wind, "I'll wait, even if it's just a dream." The promise became her breath, her prayer, and the only light in the long nights that would follow.
Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months, and still Lee did not return. Every morning, Tusam woke to the sound of the same river outside her window, calm, endless, and cruelly unchanged. She had built a small wooden table near the window, and every sunrise she would place a cup of tea there for Lee, just as she used to when he was home. The steam rose, faded, and disappeared, like her hope, little by little, into the wind. Sometimes she would walk to the old post office in town, asking the same question, "Has there been a letter from him?" And every time the old postman would shake his head gently, avoiding her eyes. The villagers began to whisper. "He's not coming back," someone said at the market one day. Poor Tusam, still waiting like a fool. But she didn't care. She still went to the riverbank every evening, wearing the same faded scarf Lee had given her. She would sit in silence, watching the sunset turn the water red, pretending it was just another evening, the kind they used to share together. Her body grew weaker as the months passed, the sleepless nights, the endless waiting, and the loneliness gnawed at her, yet she refused to give up. She believed in his promise. She could feel it in her soul that he was still alive somewhere, fighting to come back to her. Then one evening, while feeding the chickens in the yard, she heard the sound of an engine approaching. Her heart leapt. A jeep stopped at the gate, and a man in uniform stepped out. It wasn't Lee. "Are you Miss Tusam?" "Yes," she replied, her voice trembling. The man held out a small box wrapped in brown paper. "This was found among Captain Lee's belongings. He wanted it to be sent to you." Her knees weakened. The world blurred for a moment. With shaking hands, she opened the box. Inside was a silver ring and a folded piece of paper. It read, "For Tusam, the woman I promised to marry when I return. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back. But please, don't stop living. Promise me you'll smile again." Tears spilled down her face, each one burning like fire. She clutched the ring to her chest, whispering his name over and over. "No, Lee. You promised me. You said you'd come back." The sky darkened and thunder rolled across the horizon. Rain began to fall, washing away the dust, the pain, and her last thread of denial. That night she sat by the river again, the place where they had made their promise. The water shimmered beneath the moonlight, and for a brief second she thought she saw him standing there, smiling the way he always did. "Lee," she whispered into the rain, "you broke your promise, but my heart still believes." And though he was gone, his presence lingered in every sound of the wind, every ripple of the river, every star above her head.
3 months after the letter arrived, Tusam's world had fallen into quiet routine, half reality, half memory. Every morning she still whispered Lee's name before she got out of bed, even though she knew he would not answer. She wore the ring he left her on a thin red string around her neck, close to her heart, a promise frozen in time. But fate, as cruel as it was unpredictable, had other plans. One stormy night, as thunder cracked across the sky, a loud knock echoed through her small house. The sound startled her so much that she nearly dropped the bowl she was holding. Who would visit in such weather? She hurried to the door, clutching her shawl. When she opened it, the rain poured in, soaking the floor. And there, standing in the downpour, was a man she thought she'd never see again. Tusam? The voice was weak, hoarse, but unmistakable. Her eyes widened. For a moment she couldn't breathe. "Lee?" He looked thinner, pale, with a faint scar tracing the edge of his temple. His uniform was torn, his hands trembling. But those eyes, the same eyes that once made her believe in miracles, were looking right at her. She reached out slowly, afraid that touching him would make the illusion vanish. "You're alive? But how? They said you—" "I know. They thought I was dead. I almost was. The explosion, I lost my memory. For months, I didn't even remember my own name until a week ago." Tusam's tears mixed with the rain as she pulled him into her arms. "You came back," she sobbed. "You kept your promise." But Lee didn't answer immediately. His arms wrapped around her, holding her tightly, as if he feared she might disappear. Yet, behind that embrace, there was something heavy, something unspoken. Later, by the fire, as she helped him dry his clothes, Lee sat silently watching the flames dance. "Tusam," he finally said, "there's something I need to tell you." Her heart stopped. The air between them grew heavy. "What is it?" He hesitated, looking at her with pain in his eyes. "When I woke up in the hospital, there was someone there, a woman. She said she was my wife." The room went cold. Tusam froze, her hands trembling as she dropped the cloth she was holding. "Your wife?" Lee lowered his gaze, his voice trembling. "I don't remember her. I don't remember anything before the explosion, not even you, until I saw your face again. Then everything came back. But that woman, she's real, Tusam. She has documents, photos. I don't know what's true anymore." Tusam's world tilted. The warmth, the relief of his return suddenly felt like a cruel joke from destiny. "You promised to marry me," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "Was that just another dream?" Lee stood, his face pale, his voice trembling. "No, Tusam, you were never a dream. You were the only thing that kept me alive." But the rain outside grew louder, as if mocking their pain. That night, Tusam sat by the window long after Lee had fallen asleep on the couch. The ring around her neck felt heavier than ever. She had waited for him through silence, through pain, through the belief that love could conquer death. But now she wondered, could love survive truth? Morning sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, brushing against Tusam's tired face. She hadn't slept all night. The sound of Lee's breathing on the couch reminded her that his return wasn't a dream. He was here, real, wounded, confused, but not completely hers anymore. When Lee stirred awake, his eyes met hers, weary, uncertain, filled with guilt. "Tusam, I need to find out who she really is," he said quietly. "If she's truly my wife, I'll face it. But if she's not, I'll never forgive myself for letting you suffer." Tusam nodded, though her throat tightened. "Then we'll go together," she whispered. "No more secrets." A few days later, they arrived at a quiet town near the border, where the woman, Mara, was said to live. As soon as Mara opened the door, she froze. Her face was pale, but her eyes sharp, the kind of gaze that hid both pain and calculation. "Lee," she breathed, clutching her chest as if seeing a ghost. "You're alive." Lee stayed still, unsure. "You said, you're my wife?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Yes, we were married 2 years ago, before your mission." She pulled out a folder filled with photos and documents, pictures of Lee in uniform, standing beside her, smiling faintly. Tusam's heart twisted. Those photos, they looked real, but something inside Lee didn't sit right. His eyes scanned the pictures again and again. "These," he said slowly, "these are edited. Look, the shadow lines are wrong. My uniform in this one, it's from a later unit. How could you have that before I joined?" Mara's face changed. For a moment, the sorrow vanished, replaced by something cold. "You shouldn't have come back, Lee," she hissed. "You were supposed to disappear. Do you think the truth will save you now?" Tusam gasped. "What truth?" Before Mara could respond, the sound of a gun clicked behind her. 2 men stepped out from another room. The same men who had ambushed Lee during his mission. Lee's instincts flared. In a heartbeat, he pushed Tusam behind him. "Run, Sam." But she refused to move. Her trembling hand gripped his sleeve. "I won't leave you again." A brief fight broke out. Chaos, shouting, shattering glass. Lee, though weak from his old injury, fought with every ounce of strength left in him. One man lunged at Tusam, but she grabbed a pot and struck him, sending him crashing to the floor. When the police finally arrived, alerted by the noise, the men were arrested, and Mara, trembling, confessed everything. She was part of a network that sold military information using Lee's disappearance to cover up their crimes. She had posed as his wife to keep control of what he knew. As she was taken away, Mara looked at Tusam with a bitter smile. "You're lucky," she whispered. "He remembered you." Tusam didn't answer. She only turned toward Lee, her tears finally breaking free. Lee reached out, brushing her cheek gently. "I told you," he murmured, his voice soft but steady. "You were never a dream." She fell into his arms, sobbing, not from fear, not from pain, but from relief. Outside, the morning sun rose fully, casting golden light across the earth. For the first time in months, Tusam felt warmth that wasn't borrowed from memory. The nightmare was over. Lee had survived the bullet, he had faced the trap, and in the end, love, fragile, scarred, but real, had survived too.